Again, every week I come to the table. Sometimes it's about breeding. Sometimes it's about business. It's been about anxiety in the past. But, this one is actually about an African adventure. And I wanted to get into this. And it's kind of interesting. I think that a lot of what I try to talk to you guys about is inspirational, causing you guys to follow your dreams, doing things that fulfill your life, right? And interestingly enough, probably going back 10, 12 years or so, there were a couple things that I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a TV show, and I wanted to film a documentary, like a wildlife, old school ish type of documentary. And of course, the best of both worlds would have been to have a TV network let me do that documentary. And it just didn't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now we ended up doing, I did a handful of TV things, did a show with Cam Newton, one-off show with Cam Newton on Nickelodeon, was on Discovery Science, filmed a pilot for History Channel, and then ultimately had the series on Discovery Channel. So kind of felt like we ticked that box, right?
Yeah.
We ticked that box. That's not to say that we're never going to do anything in the future. There might even be some news about that here relatively soon. But I've said the only TV that I would do in the future is one that is based on my family business. With all the people here, I'm not interested in doing any adventure shows on TV. I'm not interested in doing, I shouldn't say that. I'll take that back. I would probably do a cryptozoology show on TV.
Yeah.
I think it was like a mythical, like, searching for, the, whatever, chupacabra or whatever the case may be. I would probably do that show just because I think I'd be really into it. Doubt that that's ever going to happen, right? So I
never know.
I'm going to put that on the back burner. But I would do a TV show that was based on the Reptarium, our family business, and that type of stuff. So more on that later. I don't want to get too deep into that, but there might be something going on there. But one of the things I wanted to do was a documentary. And so I decided to do our own documentary. And we did actually raise some money on Kickstarter. By the way, anyone that donated to that Kickstarter, thank you so much. We did raise some money, but it certainly a lot of money came out of my pocket. I think that we ended up with a little over $100,000 budget to do a self-funded documentary called Brian in the Wild. You can buy the DVD or Blu-ray
It's dope,
right
y'all,
now,
for sure.
but at the same time, you can go on YouTube and watch it for free. So it is available on YouTube for free. But if you decide you want a hard copy, I'm not trying to sell you guys on anything. I just wanted to tell you that it is available still. I was a little younger at that time, not quite as tattooed up. I think I had the African sleeve because I wanted to finish the African sleeve before I left for Africa. And so we spent about a year preparing for the stories that we wanted to shoot when we were in Africa. We ended up teaming up with a couple guys, a guy named Clint that was down in KZN, and then Warren and Nicole Klein that was up in the Bella Bella area. In South Africa, and they really Warren and Nicole were my two main people, especially for anything that we did up north, around the Kruger, and we went to a place called Jakudu and stuff like that. And then Clint really was my guy for down south, down in KZN and in Dumu and Tembe and stuff like that. So we worked hard. We had a great team. We ended up having two real A-class camera guys. And we had a really great guy named Lyndon who was a sound guy for us that was absolutely phenomenal. And then we had a bunch of other people on the production team that were helping out. So it was a great team. I think we were about 9 or 10 people strong in the actual dock range. But so we set off to South Africa. We flew on, by the way, I'm going to just kind of tell you the whole story, but one particular part of it, I'll tell you a little bit more too. And again, remember, if you guys have any questions, just hit me up on Super Chat. We'll probably interrupt the story from time to time and hit your Super Chats, as well as afterwards we'll stay as late as we need to answer all your questions in the Super Chat. So, anyways, we flew on South African Air, which because I think we flew from America. We had about 7 people that came in the crew, and then I think we had the rest. Everyone else was in South Africa, and so we flew on South African Air because it just seemed to be the most economical at the time and stuff like that. And it was kind of funny. Anyone that knows I'm kind of a nervous flyer, even though I've flown so much, I'm a nervous flyer. And the one review that I saw in South African Air was that they would have problems with their TVs and seat TVs. Now you're talking about we flew from Washington D.C. we flew from Washington D.C. to Senegal. And then from Senegal to Johannesburg. Yeah. And so I think it was about an 8.5-hour flight to Senegal, and then an 8.5-hour flight from Senegal to Joburg. And so, you know what, definitely not a comfortable plane. It was a big plane, but not comfortable seats. And sure enough, we took off, and we were probably 20 minutes into the flight, and the TVs went out. Like they just go out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. Thankfully, they did get them back on, because you can only imagine a 16-hour trip. And by the way, when you land in Senegal, you don't even get off the plane. It's literally like a runway that has you land, you turn the plane around because there's only one runway, and you fly out the same way you came back in. And but the only reason they do that is because when you're entering into Africa, they want to disinfect the plane. So it's kind of messed up, really. They come in with like hazmat suits, and they spray this is called airborne. It's a aerosol, and they spray the entire plane. And then crazy. And you're sitting there, you're ingesting this aerosol spray, whatever the heck chemicals are in it, and
kills 99% of all living things, right?
Yeah, and then they like kind of do a quick check on luggage and stuff like that, carry on, and you're on the ground for like maybe a half hour, and then they take off, and you're back in the way to Joburg. But anyways, we had a bunch of different stories that we wanted to tell along the way, and we wanted to make this about an hour long, which it turned out to be exactly an hour-long documentary. Probably could have been an hour and a half, because we had so much footage we ended up not using. But it was interesting, because when I was in the planning, like I said, we planned almost a year to go to Africa, and about maybe 4 months before we left for Africa, everything was set. We had dates, we had, all the stuff was getting set and stuff like that. That's when, weirdly enough, Discovery Channel contacted me about doing the Venom Hunters show.
Get out, really?
Yeah. So literally, when I left first, obviously when I signed the contract with them, I had to include the fact that Brian in the Wild had already been in production, so I could still do it, because of course they want no competes and stuff like that. So they did allow me to do Brian in the Wild, but it was interesting because when I was leaving for Brian in the Wild, I was inking the final contract, knowing that I was going to be on the ground for about 2 or 3 weeks after Africa, because we spent about a month in Africa. I was going to be home for I think it was like 15, 16 days. And then I left for a month for Australia to film that. So it was kind of interesting how they both kind of, backed. But I was excited about the Africa thing. And we had lots of great stories lined up. Not all reptile stories. So like I said, I'm going to tell one particular reptile story. But there was so much cool animal stuff. We went there, and we did, I think the first day literally probably jet lagged and all. We did black mambas. We did a black mamba removal from a house. And I was thinking to myself, like, wow, we really jumped into this quick. It's like literally we're on the ground for probably less than 10 hours. We got in, we slept, woke up, and within an hour of waking up, we had the production crew was ready to start filming. Had a call out to a place that had black mamba, and we're able to go and actually extract the black mamba from a thing. And it was definitely a wild way to start. I remember feeling a little bit anxious. I really hadn't had a lot of black mamba experience. And I know they're so whippy and stuff like that. So it was, but it was a great way to start. It was really exhilarating.
Thrown into the fire, right?
Thrown right into the fire. I mean, just really good. Fortunately, I had my friend Warren Klein with me, and he's an expert. I mean, he now lives in the States, but he's a South African. And interestingly enough, his job was to fly to Angola for the oil fields, and he would actually remove the venomous cobras and monitors from the oil fields to keep the people. So he would I think if I'm not mistaken, he would fly there for a month. Mm-hmm. He would sleep on the oil fields, like in the barracks and stuff like that. And he would just be there on call, just like whenever an animal. And then he would fly home, and he'd have a month back in South Africa. But he ended up flying moving back because Nicole was from Rhode Island. And so they live in Rhode Island now. And I think even for a short period of time, they were flying him from Rhode Island to Angola. for I think like the first year or two that he was back here, and but good people, and he kept me safe during the black mamba extraction, and we did some good stuff with that, and then I think. Right after that, we jumped right into puff adders. Weirdly enough, we jumped onto doing puff adders and Mozambique spitters too, if I'm not mistaken. And so the first day and a half, I mean, it was all venomous snakes. Just South African venomous snakes, and just getting your feet wet. Jumping right into it, and but it was so much fun. And I think we spent 2 or 3 days filming in the Bella Bella area, and then we ended up shooting up to Jakudu, where we were going to do the big 5, which are obviously the big impressive things of Africa, lions and
elephants,
and,
rhinos.
What is the big 5? I can't believe I can't. I
know
it's
water buffalo,
it's
right? Or Cape
buffalo, elephants, leopards, lions, and what's the last one of the big 5?
So,
I don't know if rhinos are or not.
Yeah, I think it's looks like leopard, Cape buffalo, rhino.
Yeah, rhino,
lion,
elephant. Yeah, an elephant. Yeah, exactly. So we knew we could go up to Jakudu, which bordered the Kruger, which of course everyone knows the Kruger, the big national park up there. That's huge. Well, this actually bordered a fence between the Kruger and Jakudu, but we were able to actually in the Kruger, you're not allowed to get out of your vehicle. Like you have to stay in your vehicle at all times. With Jakudu, we were able to walk around, and actually get out and do things on foot, and that's why we chose to go there. And it was a nice big place, and we stayed at a bush camp that was really beautiful. And I always tell the story. We pulled up. I think again this was like the second or third night I was in South Africa, and we drove from Bella Bella up to Jakudu, and it was a pretty good drive. I think it was like a 6 or 8 hour drive, a lot of dirt roads. I'm not kidding you guys. We saw 2 dead people on the road. 2 dead people on the road while we were driving. So you realize like, wow, we're in it, man. Let's have some fun, And I remember it was kind of funny because we got to Jakudu and we got to the bush camp, which was another probably 10 miles, well, maybe 5 miles into the park, in the middle of nowhere. And we had the entire bush camp. Our production team had the entire bush camp, so we were all alone. And I remember we got there about a half hour after Warren and Nicole got there. They got there and got things set up for us. So as soon as we pull in, they kind of like ushered me immediately off. They're like, come here. And they gave me the nicest, like room, which was actually really nice for a bush camp. It was probably the nicest room we stayed at the entire time, because most of the time we were staying in like almost hut type stuff, and this actually had a shower, and it was actually really nice. And but nevertheless, they ushered me in there. They give me the nicest room. They're like, you get this, but we got to show you something. And there was like almost like a little lanai between rooms, right? Like a covered porch, and there was a freaking honey badger.
What?
Inside, and so we sit down and start playing with this honey badger. And it's a wild honey badger, but apparently it's somewhat habituated to people because people were, whatever,
feeding
they were,
it,
feeding
and
it, stuff.
Yeah.
So we're playing with it, and it was me and Warren and Nicole, and then by that time, Peter Birch from Australia was with us, and he came in, and there was we're blah blah, and then it was funny because we played with this thing for like an hour. I mean, it would run at you like a tank. I mean, like a tank, and like roll over on its back, and smack its head on the ground like a coconut, and then it would play, and if you play, it was kind of a rough play. It was just play, but when it bit you, it hurt. We played almost like hot potato with it.
Oh my God! Yeah,
it would run after you, and it would try to bite you, and then you'd go.
Oh my God,
there.
that's ridiculous.
But it was just a complete playful thing, and it was like right after that it was getting pretty late at night at that point. We were going to start filming in the morning, and they said, oh, by the way, don't tell anyone that we just did this, because the only rule they talked about is don't play with the honey badger. I guess when we screwed up, they had this like thing like nobody mess with the honey badger, and so yeah, we broke that rule really quickly. But so we got some sleep that night, and I remember waking up and walking out, and you got to remember in this part, this whole month that we were in South Africa, we did what they call braais, which are like barbecues, where you're cooking outside. I mean, we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner on a braai, and so I woke up and kind of made my way out to the camp, and it was funny because I walk out and there's a fucking cheetah. That's literally right outside my door. just sitting there, chilling. A cheetah.
And this is a wild random cheetah.
Well, it wasn't a wild random cheetah. At this time I didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I
It's just a
I had
cheetah.
No
Who gives a
idea. It's
shit?
just
Yeah.
a cheetah, and I'm like, what?
Free roaming.
And I walk up, and it's just kind of purring, and of course I've been around cheetahs a bunch. If they purr, that means they're happy. And I think I reached down and kind of even petted it a couple times. It almost like, am I supposed to be doing this? I'm not
is
sure
this
what's
someone's
going
dog?
on. And so I make my way over afterwards, and they say, oh yeah, you've met Ntembe. Ntembe is the kind of camp mascot. It lives in the bush camp area,
so
and
cool.
basically what it was an orphaned female cheetah. And so it still would go out and hunt wild, but it could come and go.
Almost like a house cat that people let roam.
Exactly. So we got to spend
insane.
the week that we were at Jakutu. Ntembe became. As a matter of fact, I just heard about 2 years ago that Ntembe got killed by a lion. I was really bummed out because it was a real special animal that I remember for so long. So, but then we like I said, then we spent like 5 days filming hippopotamus and rhinos and all elephants and all kinds of we even found lions, and we're able to get out on feet and get within maybe 20 feet of wild lions, which was pretty awesome.
Damn, son.
Can we rail this in?